Games new to me. Please like and subscribe.
Hey guys, Rob here for Games New to Me. Welcome back to what will this time be less a stellar video and more of a stellar rant. I want to read you a few choice paragraphs that recording artist Moby posted in a Huffington Post blog post. Quote, "A few years ago, I was at a friend's house, and his kids were playing video games. I learned from his 10-year-old son how profitable it was in the video game to have sex with a prostitute, then kill her, and take back the money that you just paid her for sex. When you have kids in middle America growing up listening to misogynistic music and playing misogynist video games and watching misogynistic TV and movies, is it in any way surprising that they grow up and respond warmly to Trump and his misogyny?" Quote, "According to polls, only 1 out of 5 Trump supporters is bothered by the Access Hollywood tape wherein he extols grabbing women by their genitals and forcing himself sexually on married women. 80% of Trump supporters simply brush off Trump's misogyny, or worse, are encouraged by it. But again, this misogyny didn't happen on its own, and it's sadly not uncommon." In the next quote, he says, "Record labels promoted it by selling egregiously misogynistic music." He continues, and this time it gets interesting because it concerns video games. Quote, "Video game companies promoted it by selling egregiously misogynistic games." Unquote. And then he says, and I quote, "I'm not a fan of censorship or prudish moralizing, but I'm aware that actions have consequences. And when you feed people a steady diet of hate and misogyny, many of them will eventually come to embrace it." Quote, "Again, I'm not proposing censorship, but I firmly believe that virulent misogyny we and our kids have been subjected to for the last few decades has absolutely no place in a respectful democratic society." Unquote. Okay, nothing personal towards Moby, but aside from proposing zero solutions, he seems to be woefully out of touch, uninformed, and seemingly shooting his mouth off first and asking questions later, while all the while blaming everyone's favorite whipping boy, video games, for all the woes of the world. Sound familiar? I'm not even entirely certain where to start with this, so I'll just be going point by point, I guess, and illustrate why Moby doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Granted, he does talk about the music industry, and movies and television, as well as video games, but he's just as wrong about those issues as he is about video games. But I'll leave it to someone else to refute his claims on those issues, as I'm only concerned with video games on this channel, and that's all I'm going to try and talk about here. Number 1. Moby claims that a few years ago he went to a friend's house, and from the context of the conversation or what he wrote, I can figure out that he's talking about Grand Theft Auto and that his friend's 10-year-old son was describing the way the game is played. Okay, firstly I'd like to ask, why is a 10-year-old playing Grand Theft Auto in the first place? Years and years ago, to prevent government oversight and the implementation of standards by people who don't understand video games, the video game industry itself decided to monitor itself and developed an age appropriateness rating for all video games industry-wide. So I question less the perceived misogyny of the video game as I do the judgment of his friend's parenting skills. I doubt Moby even knows that video games have a fairly strictly adhered to rating system, and if that 10-year-old boy was playing Grand Theft Auto, well, then the only people to blame are the boy's parents. Number 2. Moby talks about kids in middle America growing up listening to misogynistic music and playing misogynistic video games and watching misogynistic TV and movies. Is it in any way surprising that they grow up and respond warmly to Trump and his misogyny? As I said, I'm going to leave the bulk of his blog post for others to discuss as I'm focused on video games, but I'll break my rule only to say this. Does Moby not realize that music also has an age rating system? He's a musician. He should be familiar with this. And secondly, did anyone truly believe that Gene Simmons was a real demon? Did any kid in the 70s really believe that Gene Simmons of Kiss was an actual living, breathing, blood-drooling demon? Even without the internet, kids in the 1970s definitely knew that it was all theatrics, a part of the show. Just like Alice Cooper decapitated himself on stage, day in and day out, on tour, yet still managed to finish out the show. As realistic as it might have looked, did anyone believe that Alice Cooper had just committed suicide on stage before a stadium full of people? Okay, now watch this. I'm going to tie this all together very nicely here for you. Just like Gene dribbling blood or Cooper self-guillotining himself, it was obvious to everyone, even from the very young, that it was all just a show. It was art. From the shenanigans on stage to the lyrics of the songs, it was all art. Just like video games are art. In today's day and age, commercially available art such as music and video games come with an age restriction label for easy identification by parents. So there really is no excuse for Moby to blame any art form for the, quote, rise of Trump, unquote, and that includes TV as it is also rated. So he only has bad parenting to blame, if anything at all. Number 3. Moby then says, quote, according to polls, only 1 out of 5 Trump supporters is bothered by the Access Hollywood tape wherein he extols grabbing women by their genitals and forcing himself sexually on married women, unquote. Maybe he's right about that figure of Trump supporters being okay with the Access Hollywood tape. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. The question arises, what demographic does the stereotypical Trump voter fit into age-wise? Because we have statistics to back this up. Would mostly older to elderly and mostly white pretty much cover a good swath of the demographic of the Trump voter? You know, people who are old enough to remember when the TV hit Mad Men was an everyday reality for them in the workplace and in society. Because I can damn near guarantee you that these folks are more likely to listen to Lawrence Welk recordings as well as reruns of the Ed Sullivan Show than listen to Alice Cooper or Kiss, and those are getting up in years themselves. And if they ever played Pong or Pac-Man, that was the extent of their video gaming experience. So Moby, please explain to me, how can an older, whiter demographic that never played video games have been influenced by them? Simple answer is they couldn't have. Before anyone gets upset and tells me that they themselves are a Trump supporter and aren't that old and do play video games, I want you to know that I'm talking about the vast majority of Donald Trump supporters, and those are also the same people who primarily make up the Republican Party. So I'm just going by publicly available statistics here. Also, I'd like to make clear that I'm neither slamming nor endorsing Donald Trump, his supporters, or anything associated with his campaign. It's Moby who brought up Donald Trump, and for that reason, Donald Trump's name and his supporters are even being talked about in this video. As for Moby, please tell me, how exactly did modern music and video games influence statistically older voters? As for millennials, I don't see the influence of video game misogyny affecting them. If anything, I think many people would call the current crop of young people more touchy and even overly critical of real or perceived injustices towards all minorities, including women. It's a complaint I hear about millennials time and again that they are overly politically correct, if anything. So please tell me, Moby, please tell me, how is it that a generation that is more sensitive about social injustices responsible for the rise of Donald Trump? One last thing, Moby, please do your research before you speak on issues you obviously have no knowledge about, and please lighten the hell up. This is Rob for Games New to Me saying, guys, I have a request. If you're disgusted by the lack of forethought by the likes of Moby like I am, please share, tweet, and retweet, thumbs up, and spread this video, as I'd really like for Moby to see it, with the very minute hope that he'd actually go to the trouble to see this video and answer my questions to him. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it more than I can say. I'll just say it's incredibly personally rewarding to me that you enjoyed my video, and I don't mean financially, because this channel actually loses me money, if anything. To my subscribers, I am in your debt, and I love you guys. This community that's growing is just amazing to me, and I'm blown away that we've blown past 600 subscribers. Thank you so very much for everything. Now, if you just stumbled upon my channel, this video, or me, won't you click that brightly colored subscribe button and give me a chance to win you over? You'll not only be joining a wonderful gamer community, you'll not only have my gratitude, but most importantly, you'll always be notified whenever a new video goes up on the channel. Until next time, guys, be sure to vote, be good to each other, and I'll catch you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.